What is up, my Whisker Wavians? That is a bad name, holy crap. I told y'all this was coming, and with the recent conclusion of the Season 2 tournament, it is time for another unscripted, unedited tier list. Now, before we get into any actual tierings, out of solidarity for the fighters they unfairly beat, I will not be ranking Lance and Wrench, as we have clear evidence of both of them cheating. Lance in his match against Grimoire, and Wrench in his match against Shield. For their actions will not go unpunished. Anyways, on to the ranking. Going in order of, this is seemingly in order of release, and just gonna go in order of how the thing places its sword. This placing is probably not gonna deviate from my previous ranking. He's the guy you go when you're new and you want to test yourself out. He's pretty decent. His scaling isn't all too fast or slow, and he can do some pretty devious crap when the time comes. But he's not the greatest, and he's not the worst. So I'm going to put him in B tier. Dagger. Now, with the coming of a majority of these new competitors, Dagger, I'm going to be honest, I'd say Dagger has fallen off a bit. He was one of the best, and he still is pretty good. But he's just not at the top anymore. If you know what I'm saying. His scaling, he is still one of, not, I wouldn't say he's the best anymore. There's a certain sorry about that. There is a certain weapon ball that I'll get to later that I'd say takes its spot for the best defensive weapon ball. It has good offense. Its scaling kind of has a plateau. Once it gets to a certain speed, it doesn't really feel like or look like it goes any faster. I'm gonna have to put it in A tier. It would have been S tier, but nope. Ooh, okay. To be completely honest, I think Scythe got power crept. Scythe is still pretty good. Don't get me wrong. But she essentially got her bag stolen by the imagine walking into a fight club. You got your own little fighting style, and then you see some kid copy your fighting style and make it better. That's what happened to Scythe. I think you know what ball I'm talking about. Either way, she's still pretty good. I'd say she's up there with Dagger, not up there like Unarmed, but still pretty decent. I'm gonna have to put her below Dagger, but A tier as well. Bow, okay. I'm gonna be honest here. I used to be a bow hater. Then I went to a bow glazer. Now I'm kind of in the middle. Bow, throughout the balance changes and stuff, to be honest, we went from worst ball in the game to debatably best to now we're kind of mid. Bow's scaling is, I'd say it's more on the slower side. When she does go into what I like to refer to as a supernova state, which for those who aren't informed, I put a ball in its supernova state when it is at basically the peak of its scaling. Which is usually in endgame. like late end game. Its Supernova state is really busted, but it rarely gets to that point. Unless it's up against somebody who really can't defend themselves. And plus, with how its arrows can hit itself, which I still find stupid, by the way, I just I can't put bow any higher than sword as it stands. Okay, call this glaze. Call this glaze. But spear when I knew spear had crazy potential when spear first dropped, and I was fucking right. So we took sword and gave him reach. That is a recipe for success. Not only is spear arguably better at defense than dagger, with its damage, with the way that it damage scales, it just, if you're not careful against spear, you will be ripped to shreds. It can kill you, and it can kill you fast. I'm gonna put spear above dagger. Shield. Okay, first of all, shield should have won against wrench. That I think wrench disabled shield scaling against pellets during that. Not I think not wrench. I think Earclax disabled shield scaling against wrench. That match, along with Grimoire's match against Lance, it was genuinely rigged. We have confirmation that Lance versus Grimoire was rigged. I don't think we have a direct confirmation for Wrench versus Shield, but I still think that it was 100% rigged. This is why they're both in cheater tier. The Earclax and his anti Grimoire Shield agenda is wild. Anyways, Shield is the best defensive ball in the game. You against certain balls, like say he hard counters certain balls, bow, spear. I would say dagger, but dagger has that quantum tunneling thing that he likes to do against shield, which I'm gonna be honest, it's a cool technique. It's a really cool technique. I think it might be borderline cheating though. I'm going to have to check up on the rules on that one, but still, if you can't get past shield, it's over for you. Like I believe the hardest counter to shield would maybe be Flask. Maybe. I don't think I've seen them fight yet. I don't think they fought at all yet. But that's solely because I don't know if Shield can create puddles, can create puddles on a reflect like Flask does. In practice, it probably would, which would be insane and would negate the counter entirely. But yeah, it's Shield is debatably one of not one debatably the not one. What I keep saying one of, it's debatably one of the goats in Earclack's current era. I'm going to have to put him in a S tier. Boots. Okay, normally I just rank boots and an arm. Not normally. I was planning on ranking boots and unarmed in the same category because they are the same person. But when unarmed put those boots on, it's like he had 2-ton weights on him. I'm gonna have to put him in D, not F, D tier, because he wasn't explicitly horrible. He just was bad, like mediocre bad. Flask, okay. Flask, Flask is an interesting case because other than Shuriken, I believe Flask is the only other than Shuriken, the cheater who shall not be named, is the only explicit area denial, not area control style ball, which It's an interesting concept, really. You punish the other ball for going in a certain way, like going somewhere in a certain way. But with Flask in particular, I think they're the weakest of the three. The, yeah, the poison is. Should I even call it poison at this point? It's more like acid. I'm decently sure it is acid. What am I talking about? The acid is. It's effective, but it doesn't kill fast. And really, the meta right now is killing fast, as fast as possible. Which is why I'm gonna have to put you at C tier. You can't really, in a world where killing fast means winning. When you kill slow, you lose. Mmm. Scepter. Oh, no, not scepter. Staff. I don't know why I mixed those up. Staff. Okay. So, I just want to take a tangent on staff. Prime staff was moving like Hay and Arasukuna, and I really wish for that. Like, I do. I genuinely think staff does need a buff. To be honest, the, with the slow spin speed combined with the starting radius being not all too high, meaning staff really can't ramp that much during a game unless they're like going against, say, Lance, to like Lance, or maybe Wrench. It's because they like a Wrench has this weird habit of accidentally locking itself in a certain area sometimes, which I think staff could capitalize on. Anyways, it can't really. I'd say it and Hammer have the slowest ramp in game currently. I wouldn't. That's not a good thing. At least not for staff. For Hammer, it's fine because of how Hammer works. But for staff, it's just. It's not the greatest. It doesn't give her all that much to work with, which is why I'm gonna have to put her below. Not below. I'm gonna put her above Flask. Yeah, they both kill slow. I would say staff is slightly better though. Shuriken. Okay. Now, I remember putting Shuriken in S tier the last time I did one of these, which I'm gonna be honest, I wouldn't put them that high anymore. Or with all the new I'm gonna be honest, they have like a couple just straight hard counters now, which originally they were fine. Shield did do them a bit dirty. It could do them a slight bit dirty, but since with them getting enough bounces, it wasn't really an issue. But now with players like Grimoire and Lance in the league, it's not really Shuriken's game anymore. If you get what I'm trying to say. Shuriken is still really good, which I'm going to have to put him in A tier, below Dagger. But they're not at their peak anymore. Hammer, okay. So, Gerson Boom over here is interesting. I remember thinking of him like, oh, so what if sword plus dagger? That's interesting. I'd say I wouldn't call him that anymore. I just say he's what if sword had to wind up for a big attack? He's basically like what if unarmed had a weapon, which is weird. It works sometimes, like against fast rampers, because he's not really that fast of a ramper. He does decent damage, and he can ignore that. He does decent damage, and he can ramp, and he can hit. If he combos you, he'll. If you get comboed by him, you're in for a hell of a beatdown. But usually, from what I've seen, footage-wise, is either Hammer kills you fast, which is, or you just beat the crap out of Hammer. Like, I believe Hammer versus Dagger happened. No, I might be going schizo sometime. Not some. What am I even talking about? Sorry about that. Anyways, I'm gonna have to put Hammer at like high B tier. I'd say Hammer is actually a bit better than Sword. Or heck, I think from where I'm standing, I can barely tell the colors apart. Anyways, on the topic of sword copies, Katana. Now, Katana's interesting. Remember when I said Scythe got her bag taken by another ball? That's basically that. Katana is, what if Scythe was faster? It it's a simple it's a simple concept. What if Scythe did its poison faster, way faster, actually, at a consistent rate, and what a consistently faster rate? And to be honest, where Scythe's poison has its strength and its ability to be able to stack, I think Katana's slashes slash poison. I think Katana slashes are actually overall better. That quick burst of damage works very well in the short term, other than Scythe, who kind of has to play the long game if they can't get enough hits off. Especially with Scythe's secret little special ability of being able to scale, of being basically the fastest scaler in game, because they scale off of parries. They scale off of parries and hits. No matter if you block their attack, or you get hit directly and get fucking malevolent shrined, which, yeah, I'm comparing it to that, because that's basically what their ability is. It scales either way, and that's insane. I don't know what Euroclax was thinking when they decided, yeah, let's make the fastest scale in the game and give them basically better poison. Are you kidding me? That's S tier immediately. The only reason they're not above Shield is because Shield is their direct counter. Ooh, okay, Unarmed. Unarmed is another interesting case, because I believe Unarmed was nerfed semi-recently, before the tournament, of course, but in Season 2. I think it was a ramp reduction. I'm not exactly sure. I'm gonna be honest, I need to check the changelogs more. They're still pretty good. Not goated. They're not good. I'm gonna be honest. I would say that their GOAT status has been lost to Shield. But it's still, I'd say like it directly counters a majority of the cast. But when it's struggling, it struggles hard. Say against Shield, or again Katana. Jeez, I'm gonna put Unarmed mid A tier, above Dagger, but not above Spear. Scepter. Okay. I just want to ask, can we all agree the Scepter, that Scepter coming from 2v2s as a healer to basically become from going heal mode to vampire mode, was kind of a crazy turnaround. Nobody was expecting this. I was shocked when I saw, wait, is that Scepter? And I saw a beat, like, Scepter was fucking on a rampage when it first came to 1v1s. Scepter decided, I feel like I'm not being respected, and decided to give itself some respect. Which, in all fairness, it did. It did. I'm gonna have to. Its lifesteal is genuinely an insane ability. It it you it really makes it so the only way you can kill Scepter is either by being shield or by killing or by making sure they you deal more damage than they can heal back. Like which only a few to like example of this maybe example of this sword, just sword getting into the one shot range would win. But I'd also say continuous damage like shuriken or scythe would beat scepter in if we ran like a bunch like hundreds of simulations at once. Overall, I'd see the more wins out of the balls that can do continuous damage than the balls that hit hard once, excluding sword, of course, and shield because shield is just that broken. I'm gonna have to put scepter above spear in A tier. It's it's such a their ability is so simple yet so broken at the same time. Now, last contestant, the one who was robbed. Also, before I talk about Grimoire, I'm gonna st- I'm not gonna be mentioning anything about Shield versus Grimoire, even though that match basically meant to happen if somebody hadn't if not somebody if two balls hadn't have cheated. Anyways, Grimoire is the most interesting case out of basically all of these because their ability is really dependent on the enemy in more ways than one. Like you really can't counter Grimoire unless you can counter yourself. If you get what I'm trying to say. Like say take Spear versus Grimoire. Or Grimoire hits Spear, creates a Spear copy. Spear immediately kills that copy because it's low health, but the copy still gets a hit on Spear, and that keeps happening until Spear dies. Spear can't really deal with multiple like if you can't deal with hordes and you can't deal with yourself, you don't beat Grimoire. And I don't think a majority of these balls can do both. Like another example, Bow. Bow can definitely deal with hordes, but like, example, Bow. Bow is the only one I think I could deal with hordes and deal with itself. Of due to its essentially, it's got the widest bait. The bow itself, when blocking, essentially kind of acts like a shield since it's basically, I believe it's not counting the actual shield weapon itself, the widest weapon in in terms of like horizontally, not like going long. What do you mean? It's just the widest weapon, which means It'll most likely block a lot of the copy arrows, the copy's arrows, and it'll hit back with enough arrows to wipe the floor with the copies and Grimoire. With somebody who I think wouldn't be able to deal with either Hammer. Hammer would be too slow, and yes, it would do damage, but it wouldn't be able to ramp up to enough damage. Like it wouldn't be able to speed up without hitting a copy, and it would just die. It's really it's really weapon dependent. I and you don't really counter Grimoire. You counter yourself because that's all you're fighting when you're fighting Grimoire. Yourself. I'm gonna have to put Grimoire in. I'm gonna have to put him in top B. the, there's I think a major roadblock from them moving up into A or S would be something like someone like Shuriken. If if there weren't as many balls that could, how do I describe this? If there weren't as many balls that are good at crowd control, yeah, that's a good. If there weren't as many balls that were as good as crowd control as there are now, I think Grimoire would be high A. But with Shuriken, Shield, well, no, we're not counting Shield because we all know how Shuriken versus Shield goes. Into the crash zone. Anyways, with people like Shuriken and high A, there's no way Grimoire can. I don't know. Sometimes I don't know what I'm trying to say. Anyways, so yeah, this is the completed current tier list, excluding the two cheaters, because they're cheaters. If I were to actually rank them, I'd say Lance goes in top B, not above Grimoire, and Wrench goes in mid A. But since they cheated, they don't deserve those positions. Well, that'll be all for now. Hopefully this video doesn't flop like that Itch.io video. Like seriously, it's been like 3 days and it has 2 views. Count it, 2 views. Anyways, before I leave, I got some things to say. One thing to say that I'm gonna keep saying. First, I still have that Discord. If you wanna talk to me, I guess. Because right now it's the people who talk to themselves club, and the only member is me. Which means there are tons of members. Yippee! That'll be linked below. Credit to whoever made this on Tiermaker. You're a lifesaver. I think this is the only one who was updated for Season 2. Anyways, that'll be all for now. You guys have an amazing day, night, or whatever the hell. And later.